Yo yourself. Oh my God, you crack me up.
Well, because I'm 60 and yet I can talk street.
Yeah, absolutely. In such a posh accent as well. Marvellous.
Yo, I've watched The Wire.
Yeah.
I haven't actually.
What are you chatting about? As Phoebe would say, what are you chatting about?
Exactly. What you chatting about?
Minesh always greets me like that as well. It's like being in the hood all of a sudden.
Yeah, exactly. We're in the hood.
Yeah, exactly.
We're so not in the hood, Nicola. You're in Shoreham, and I'm too posh to be in the hood. But give it a go.
You are in South London, though.
I am in South London. I'm just up the hill from Brixton. I've lived here all my life, so I do know what a hood is.
Although not actually actively participating in one.
Well, I did live behind the police cordon in the Brixton riots.
Welcome to Own It, Your Business and Your Life, with Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. In this podcast, we're going to cover everything you need to embrace to become a successful entrepreneur, marketing, money, and much, much more. How to create a business doing just what you love. How to own it, your business and your life. This one will be fast, funny, feisty, and very lively. So sit back and enjoy the show. Anyway, moving swiftly on. One to three things about your week, Judith.
Oh, right. Were we recording already where we were having that conversation?
Yes,
for heaven's sake. I thought it was just you and me. How funny.
No, that will be appearing on our 50th anniversary episode.
Okay, so I will. Right, one thing about my week. Okay. You remember the Rachel Turner workshop that I came to at the Acacia?
Vividly.
I always remember something I learnt that day, and I teach it to all my clients, and she said, what three things would you be doing if this was your last day on earth? And mine are reading, writing, and swimming in the turquoise water. And I love reading, love reading. My favourite way to acquire any information at all is reading. My second one, listening, and my third one, watching. I can't bear video, as you know. But with my new hobby, crayoning.
Oh, yes.
You can't read or watch, so you've got to listen. So we've all had, haven't we, the subscription at Audible, and then I turned mine off because I wasn't, buying any audio books because I'm not a listener. I'm a reader. But with my crayoning, I thought, well, last month I had to listen to the book club book, if you remember, on listening because I couldn't read it. And this month I'd accidentally signed back into my Audible account again, so I was holding on to a credit. So last night I thought, right, what shall I spend this on? And I downloaded Liz Gilbert's latest book, which is called Big Magic, and it won't have escaped you that since February 2014, i.e. a year and a half at least, that's what my little coaching group is called, Small Business Big Magic. Now, I'm sure Liz Gilbert hasn't copied me, but there's some nice synchronicity, there. And I listened to only the first few, maybe 20 minutes last night, no more. But all of my clients were in there, and I'm in there. We're all in there. It's about creativity, this book, and how the extent to which all of us are creative and are too fearful to bring it forth.
That's nice. Who's Liz Gilbert again? Which one?
Liz Gilbert. She wrote Eat, Pray, Love. Oh, and The Signature of All Things, and she's a proper published writer. She writes fiction and non-fiction.
Yeah, I read most of her book, excluding the religious bit. And
well, it's not really. Well, It's not really religion, is it? It's more. Anyway, never mind. We won't go there. That was my one thing about my week.
So that's okay. So that's nice. So in the same way that I've got into listening to podcasts late at night or early this morning from 5 o'clock when I can't sleep, you now listen while you're crayoning.
No, I don't. I download one audiobook a month to keep me company with my crayoning. I've no intention of becoming a listener. I just, because in order to download anything, you've got to pay your monthly sub, and your monthly sub entitles you to one free book. So.
Well, that's nice. It forces you to.
Yes, it does. But also, I would never have done that before because I was never going to listen because I'm a reader. But now with my crayoning, colouring in habit, it fits very nicely.
It does, yes. I've gone back to. I've stopped ordering things on the Kindle. I don't like reading on the Kindle. I've decided. So I mean, obviously it's brilliant for taking a lot of books away with you. But I've just finished Grease on My Wheels, which was Harry Enfield's dad. Edward Enfield, who used to apparently be on with Esther Rantzen on some show in the 70s and 80s and was quite well known for that. He was Watchdog. Was it Watchdog? I can't remember. Anyway, something.
That's Life?
No, it wasn't That's Life. It was the other one.
Okay.
Yeah, so I really enjoyed it because he cycled all the way around the Peloponnese, which obviously, as you know, is my favourite place on the planet. And it was very entertaining and funny, and I liked it a lot. And he was 70 when he cycled around Greece, by the way, which I was quite impressed by.
Good effort. I have to tell you that I am the opposite of you. I only like reading on Kindle. Somebody lent me a book, and I am reading it. It's inconvenient, it's heavy, the print's too small, and I can't work out what percentage I am through it, and I need to know that for the book club. So it made me realise, having a physical book in my hands, that there's no going back for me.
Oh, well, I know what you mean about the writing being too small, but I've discovered if I take my lenses out and bring the book up close, I can read it.
Well, often when I go to bed to read, I've got my lenses out. Yes, I agree. But this one is my book club book, so it sits on my desk and I've got to read a certain percentage of it a day, which is
that would just make me feel exhausted and stressed having to do things to a certain time frame like that.
Well, that's only because I choose to be in a book club.
Yeah.
And, when it's either a challenging book or not your choice, sometimes you have to divide the number of pages between by the days you've got left before the book club meeting and stick in. But it's always rewarding, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I suppose I'm just you're a voracious reader. I'm a voracious reader. I suppose it's it would stress me out, I think.
Now, I'm sure Harry Enfield's dad is not the one thing about your week, is it?
Well, the main thing about my week is Nelson turned 18 yesterday.
Oh, I didn't know that. How lovely.
Well, we've had a little bit of a family drama, so it took the edge off it a bit. But he's actually, I can't quite believe it. I still think of him as that small chubby boy. And he's not. He's a tall, lanky 18-year-old now who is not only able to go into pubs, but is seeking a job in one. He's been working in one washing up, and he wants to graduate to the bar now. So,
I think fair enough. Plongeur, we call washing up.
Oh, yes, of course. Well, he's been plongeuring at the Amsterdam.
Plongeur, yes. Now, this question is one thing about your week, brackets, could include a mini rant. I nearly ranted at you about the 6-chair challenge.
Well, I started out hating the 6-chair challenge, but by the end of it, I was baying for blood like anyone else.
Well, you see, that's the thing. It's the baying. It's awful.
Do you watch Gogglebox at all?
I watched it for 20 seconds this week because you're always on about it. I wouldn't watch it again, but it did make me laugh.
Well, it makes me laugh uproariously every week. And there's this very strange couple who obviously live in a rather lovely thatched cottage / house. And she wears very... it's very, what's the word, good life. She wears very good...
Yes, she wears yogurt weavery clothes and he sits on a taller chair with glasses and
yes.
straight. Yes, I know the one.
And there's a funny bit at the beginning in the credits where he just goes, oh, it's interesting, Mary, isn't it, how quickly this programme turns you into a raving psychopath.
Well, exactly.
And I'm not sure if he's talking about the X Factor or what he's talking about, but he's the last person on the planet you'd think would turn into a raving psychopath. Anyway,
it just reminds me of when they used to throw the Christians to the lions in ancient Rome.
Yeah.
It's baying. It's just awful. It's such low human behaviour.
I know, but the thing is, the audience is often chanting, "Get them back, get them back." So the audience is actually on the side of the
Well, I think the audience have been wound up to it, obviously.
Yeah,
But,
I imagine so. But
really?
we've got 3 more episodes of that before. 2.
Well, I'm not going to watch any more of those because
Oh, no.
I'm coming back at judges' houses. Let me know when it's judges' house and it's all nice again and turquoise water, okay?
Okay, all right. Well, it will be turquoise water, won't it?
Oh,
So I was going to have a little rant about the British Gas, but as the young man is still here, I don't think I will. He's very charming, but they said it was between 8 and 12, which meant that I woke up at 5 because I always wake up really early when I have to be out of bed at a certain time, and couldn't get back to sleep again. And but there you go. That's the thing, and it's not nobody's fault that's here. So I'll save that rant for another time.
Yes, okay. I don't think 8 to 12 is bad, quite frankly. It's those 8 to 8 ones that do my head in.
Yeah, absolutely. We have to stay in all day and can't go to the shop at all. So I'm going to ask you what's fueled your fire, but before I do, I wondered if you'd like to read our latest review, because that always...
Oh, yes, this is what's fueled your fire, isn't it? I would. Hold on, caller. It's from lovely, lovely, lovely Karen Skidmore, who's a Brit.
I think what we should do is say, if we know who the reviews are by, give them a little shout out. So Karen is
Absolutely.
Do we know what Karen does? She's a coach, a business coach of some kind?
I think she's a marketing expert, isn't she?
Yeah.
She's quite a genius. If I'd known you were going to ask me that question, I would have looked it up. But whilst I'm reading it, could you just Google KarenSkidmore.com and see if that's her URL?
I'm pretty sure
because if it is, we should.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should give her a... Right, anyway, she's given us 5 gold stars, excuse me, and her heading is laughter, business nuggets and common sense. Weekly is not enough for my fix of listening to these 2 British ladies who share their insights into life and business. I'm now in the process of downloading all the episodes I missed in 2014 when they first started, so I can listen to more. I always come away with a golden nugget of wisdom, enjoy laughing out loud, which amuses other dog walkers I meet whilst listening, and sing along to the theme tune, which doesn't seem to amuse the other dog walkers. I wonder why. Keep on podcasting. I love your shows. Isn't that nice?
It is very nice, and I have ascertained that indeed KarenSkidmore.com is where you'll find Karen. How to find clients with grace, simplicity and ease. And I'd like to say, Karen, I do remember the furore about you wearing a T-shirt and no makeup on your videos, and people were criticising you and saying you weren't very businesslike. I think you should just be absolutely 100% yourself. But then we would say that, wouldn't we, Judith?
We would, but I do love Karen, and I do love her support of ours in this. In fact, she asked to join our secret Facebook group, and I let her in.
Oh.
And I will link to her in the show notes, because this is a lovely review, isn't it?
It certainly is, and I love the fact that she's going back and she's going to plough through all the back episodes.
Yeah, well, that's rather like you.
Oh, I'm very diligent when I find a podcast I like. I like to start at number 0 and work my way along.
Yeah.
That's good. So, yes, shameless beg for more reviews, because it does make a huge difference in the iTunes chart. And from now on, we will be attempting to, you can even put your URL in your review if you want to. You know, Karen from KarenSkidmore.com into the review would have helped. And we can then go and check out your website and give you a name check on the show.
It doesn't just help us in iTunes, it helps us in our, own enthusiasm to get on Wednesday mornings and record these, doesn't it?
Oh, very much so, yeah, it does. So what else has fueled your fire then?
Well, yesterday was exciting. In my little coaching group, I don't know why I call them little, because I just love them like they're babies in a way, is why I call them little, but they're quite big now. There's about 40 of them. It was the busiest ever call I'd had in Small Business Big Magic. Usually, because there's so much allocation, there's never more than about 6 people there. Yesterday there were 8. Which was exciting and fast moving, and it meant I have to sort of divide the 90 minutes on the hoof by the number of people are there, and I'm quite strict in taking them in the rotation that they dial in, but when they all stop dialing in like that, it's quite difficult to, when you're talking to one, to work out who's next in the queue and manage the time. Anyway, it was lovely. I loved it. And I was just listening to the recording just now, which I occasionally do, to see whether I've imparted any pearls of wisdom, and I seem to manage it reasonably well. So a great busy call for Small Business Big Magic has fueled my fire this week.
Oh, very good. Well, I've read in paperback, as we have to say now, don't we, Kindle or paperback, Essentialism by Greg McKeown, which is MCKEOWN. It's the disciplined pursuit of less. And the front of the book...
preaching to the choir here.
I know.
Essentialism, yeah.
Yeah, well, it's actually got this on the front. Oh, I see. Oh, I see. Essentially, anyway, I liked it a lot. There were several key things that came out of it. Not least a rather nice grid for making decisions. I love a nice grid for making decisions. And the thing that really came out of it, the theme of the whole thing, was less but better. So, if, for example, you're going to do a wardrobe clear out, they use that analogy quite a lot. Then you could get rid of most of your stuff, but have better stuff. And I'm going to talk a bit more about it in Word of the Week. But I really love this book. It talked a lot about people paring things back, about how to make decisions under pressure, about how to prioritize, and it talked a lot about how priority was originally a singular word. It was never a plural word, so you can't really have priorities and be grammatically correct, which I thought you'd enjoy enormously.
I would. Yes, I would. Pedant alert. Yeah, lovely.
But so when you're trying to make, so I've spent my whole week thinking about this and putting it into action. In fact, I nearly killed a few of my websites, but I was talked down from that particular ledge because of the broken link issue. But it just made me want to really streamline and pare things down, and I just highly recommend it. I know lots of people have been reading it in the startup world. If you feel overwhelmed, this is a great book for you.
Oh, well, do you know how well that feeds into Client Challenge of the Week?
No, I've got no idea, but you're going to tell me.
I am. You're being what my old school friend used to call sidekick.
Okay.
But first, a word from our sponsors.
Do you feel isolated and alone in running your own home-based business? Do you have worries, doubts, fears and resistance which sometimes make you feel like giving up? Don't worry, you're not alone. In fact, you're perfectly normal. It can be scary all by yourself. But what if you could learn how to become a confident business owner, how to trust yourself more and grow your income, relax and be more creative and productive? Small Business Big Magic is a unique business mentoring group providing grounded practical support and advice, fast responses to your questions, inspiration and solutions to boost your clarity and help you find direction, focus and success in your life and business. Join Small Business Big Magic today for the friendship and encouragement of others just like you and the enthusiasm of a coach who gets you and your business. There's big magic for your small business at judithmorgan.com.
Client Challenge of the Week, productivity, but actually we could rename it priority now.
Yeah, well, let's talk about both, the two Ps.
Yeah. Well, you can. Well, I'll give you the challenge, and you can advise us based on the book. So the second caller into this busy call I had yesterday, lovely Faye, she's wanted to talk about productivity. So 3 years ago, she used to have a full-time job, and since then she's had a baby. And it's a little boy, and he's just gone to school. I'm sure he hasn't gone to school at 3, but he's gone to wherever you park them in the daytime.
Yeah.
And she used to work 10 hours a day in her day job.
Good God.
And now she's only got 5 hours, 5 days a week. And this term now, just beginning yesterday, is the first term she's ever had where she's had 5 days a week. She used to be doing it on Tuesday mornings. Do you know what I mean? Mm. And she told me that in her 10-hour day at work, she was very productive. Yes, of course she was, because she was in a day job and everybody's looking and everybody's got expectations of you and you're in a team. But that she only hit her stride in a 10-hour day job at 2 to 3 hours in. Well, of course, if you've only got 5 hours on your own at home, you can't wait 2 to 3 hours to hit your stride, can you? So we were talking about, I came up with this marvellous metaphor, which is that she used to be a marathon runner at 10 hours a day, and now she's retraining to be a sort of 5K or 10K sprinter. And, I've said this before a lot, that we only work 10 hours a day because we've got 10 hours a day. And actually, if you only had 5 hours a day, you could do the same amount of work in 5 hours a day. And I know this because, like you, one day last week, I had a sleepless night and I got up at 3:40 in the morning. I'd done all my day's work by about 6 o'clock and I gave myself the day off.
I was so impressed by that.
I know. If you're not dealing with, interruptions and madnesses and multitasking and spreading it out because you've got 8 hours or 10 hours or whatever it is, you can do it in 5. I did it in 3. So here we go. Productivity. it's a dull word, actually. It turns my heart to stone. But I like the idea. What tips can we give people? We went through the tedious things that I don't believe in, like the Pomodoro technique, and she talked about a software program called Timesheets or Time Trade or something, and we talked about those apps that don't let you do, social media while you're supposed to be writing a blog post. Productivity or essentialism or priority, what do you reckon?
Well, diary zoning is the one thing that worked for me, and that came out of my reading Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and having the schoolgirl diary, where you've got your days of the week down the left, or you've got your roles down the left, and then you've got your days of the week along the top, and then they're divided up into the hours you've got. So, that, and then I turn that into a spreadsheet, you'll be delighted to hear, which I still have. So if anyone wants a copy of that spreadsheet, we could put it in the show notes.
Oh, that would be lovely.
It's a blank one, and you can make it all coloured-y, so it's rather splendid because you can do background colours for your different roles, and you can see at a glance whether one role is disproportionately larger and taking up more.
Can I make a suggestion? What about if we upload that in the files in the secret Facebook group?
Oh, that's a much better idea. Let's do that. So, yes, do come and join the secret Facebook group on Facebook, indeed. And if you do a search for Own It, the podcast, you'll find the page and the group. So like the page and join the group.
You have to ask to join, but I've approved everybody that's asked because I pretty much knew them all.
Yeah, well, absolutely. We'll approve anyone and then just kick any rowdy people out later. Not that we're not going to be the rowdiest of all. No, the diaries only works for me, and I tell you, it takes me a long time to get into things, especially creative things. It takes me a long time to make myself do things I don't want to do as well. So I like to sit down and dick about for an hour or so, and then brace myself slowly to the task in hand. But I do sit and think every morning. I have a coffee in bed every morning with my diary, and I just do a little bit of journaling and think, what's the one thing I've got to get done today? What's the most important thing that will move my business forward? And that combined with diary zoning. So I'm only ever doing telephony kind of things like this on a Wednesday, a Tuesday morning and a Thursday morning. I leave Mondays and Fridays free for creative stroke admin stuff, and then I leave the afternoons free for example, I've just had a referral from Cassie. Remember Cassie? I don't know if you know Cassie Hicks-Kerr. She's really nice. I met her in my mastermind group, and she's got 3 clients for me, and she wants me to be available to talk to them as if I was working for her company, which is what I do when I white label myself. And I said, well, I've got, I can do all Tuesday afternoon or all Thursday afternoon. So keeping big chunks of time free for unexpected opportunities is important as well. But diary zoning is my tip.
Yes, I like diary zoning, and I'm a diary zoner as well. And I think what I think we're doing here is we're training ourselves. So I think she's retraining from this marathon runner to a sprinter. But I also think that, here we are on a Wednesday. We're on episode 48. Wednesday morning means podcast. That's all there is to it. I'm here, you're here, the British Gas Man's here, we're podcasting. And there's not much.
Soon.
In 48 episodes, we've only missed 2 or 3 when you were travelling and the Wi-Fi wasn't up to it. And it's kind of, we're trained. Yeah. It's Wednesday, it must be the podcast. And then I do the show notes, then I do my newsletter. I think it's that. You train yourself to have a routine. Which is supportive, not dull.
Yeah, and I resist routine with every fibre of my being. So I often don't edit the podcast and put the picture up till the absolute last minute. But because someone else is waiting for me to do that, I don't want to let that other person down. So outsourcing helps with productivity, because if you know that 3 times a week your blog post will be going up, but your VA can only do the admin bits and the techie bits and getting it up there if you haven't written it, then you tend to make yourself a bit more accountable than you would if it was you putting the blog post up. So that
I do think accountability is important, and obviously in my group they can have that. But I think what's quite important as well is commitment. So in the same call we had a discussion about a lady who was deciding to make a commitment to get her newsletter out regularly again. She had been regular in the past, she'd fallen off, But in the end it came down to, what are you prepared to commit to? And Marion always says, and she denies it's her intellectual copyright, but it's about making an unbreakable promise to yourself. And the difference, of course, between Faye at work in her 10-hour job and Faye at work for 5 hours is, nobody's breathing down your neck when you're working at home, are they?
No, the other thing is, I was thinking during this week, what is the least I can do to market my business, but the best things I can do. So
Nice.
it's becoming blatantly obvious that the best things to do is to make strategic partnerships with people who, who can refer people to me. And so that's what I'm going to concentrate on doing. I'm obviously going to do my own advertising and marketing to some degree, but it's very much more efficient and enjoyable to work with referral partners. And so less but better. And the other, thing I was thinking, I do a podcast every week, and then we get that transcribed and it goes into my membership area. A lot of people would think doing a podcast every week was all the marketing they needed to do. Somehow I feel I need to do more.
Yeah.
So I think examine how much you're expecting of yourself, and do you really need to do so much? Could you do less but better?
Well, that's nice. And is that something that came from Essentialism, less but better?
Yes, very much so. I've spent all week thinking, what are the things that are really working that I could do more of, and what are the things that I could do less of because I'm only doing them because I feel I need to. So that's another thing is, does your client need to spend all of that 5 hours working flat out, or could they be, just do one thing in that 5 hours and have the rest of the time for themselves?
Well, I think she does need to work 5 hours because she's new, and the difference between you and I, and so I always say to all of my new clients, what's working, let's do more of that. They haven't always been around long enough yet to know what's working.
No, very true. Yes, but you still can think. So one of the words of the week recently was visible, wasn't it? And I think if you stop and think, how visible am I to my potential future clients, and if you just did one thing each day to make yourself visible to your potential future clients, then you'd have done a good job.
Yeah, I think the other thing is that we've got to train ourselves out of multitasking.
Yeah, absolutely. No stress.
Because you could be much more productive in your 5 hours if you just do one thing at a time, and you start it, you finish it, and you end it. And she was talking typically about a blog post. She was trying to work out how long it takes to write a blog post, and the answer is half as long as if you just focus on that as if you're doing everything else at the same time.
There's actually really good in Essentialism, there is actually some really good bits about how to cope when you're massive, when you're overwhelmed and you've got 5 things that all feel equally important and urgent.
Yeah.
And that's another thing as well, isn't it? The Stephen Covey quadrant of this is urgent, this is important, and how to decide where things sit in the quadrant of. I like those 4 square things. They're more framework, aren't they?
I do like that one a lot, actually. The specific story that she told us was that what she'd done yesterday morning after dropping her little chap at school with this massive amount of freedom, 5 hours, as she'd gone to B&Q, because of course it's much nicer to go to home base. much nicer to go to home base as an adult by yourself without a toddler, isn't it? And more efficient. But the conversations that we've had, do you remember back to when you and Sarah were in the ballpark, whatever you call it, with children, we've got to ring fence those 5 hours as proper working time. And what she used to do when she had a day job of 10 hours a day, 5 days a week, was she and her husband would go to B&Q at the weekends. So now we have to decide, do I want to go to B&Q in my 5 hours working time because it's easier and more efficient and more pleasant? Or is that taking away from what I should be doing in my 5 hours, if we're talking about productivity? And I explained to her that I've been self-employed for so long that if I take time in the daytime for something that's basically a private activity, I know that I might have to, the price I might have to pay is to work on into the evening to pay for the off-peak leisure time I've had in the daytime. For instance, Wednesday afternoon's newsletter day, but in about 2 weeks' time I've moved it because I'm going to James Bond in the afternoon. And that's my prerogative, isn't it? As long as I replace the time I've stolen from my business, as it were. She's talking about productivity. She's talking about training herself to be as efficient in 5 hours as she used to be at 10, and she was a high achiever at 10. And I think you can do it in 5, but you've got to learn new ways of being a little bit strict with yourself.
I think she wasn't as productive in 10 hours as she thought she was. I reckon there was an awful lot of chit-chat, an awful lot of mucking about with colleagues, and lots of politics and lots of meetings that were completely unnecessary. I reckon nobody can be productive for 10 hours straight. That's just impossible. Nobody's got the focus for that. And just to let you know, Heather sings on the theme tune on the pond.
Oh, does she?
Yeah, do.
With Sam Smith, I've already heard the theme tune. It's wonderful.
No, she doesn't sing on the Sam Smith thing, but she does sing on the soundtrack, not the sound. Yeah, not the theme at all.
Oh, how exciting! How exciting! Can't wait. So, this is a challenge that we debate in different ways quite often. When you work for yourself at home and you're your own boss and nobody's breathing down your neck, and you've got 5 hours, which seems enough to go to B&Q, but not enough to actually make any progress in your work.
Or there's some definite avoidance going on there.
No, I don't think that's true. Actually, I think if I was a mum of a 3-year-old, you know how efficient a female solopreneur parent has to be.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm still wondering if it wasn't better to take him to B&Q though, because they love riding.
Well, I think so. I agree. I think so. Nastier, but technically everybody's got a day job, does that in evenings and weekends, and I think that probably is an evening and weekend job. Unless, of course, you do that in an hour yesterday, you come back, you do 3.5 hours, and then you borrow an hour in the evening after you've gone to bed one time to pay it back.
Do you really need to spend a whole 5 hours? I mean, 5 hours.
If you are new and you're setting up your own business from home by yourself, yes, you do.
Yeah, I suppose so. I did used to tell my clients they were either marketing their business or doing their business.
Exactly.
And then that brings us back to the Diaries only, wasn't it? Which was a Dan Kennedy thing via Chris Barrow, which is when you have Mondays for admin and something, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday for delivering, for actually doing or marketing if you're not doing, and then Fridays was marketing, i.e., meetings and networking and writing your newsletter and getting your blog posts out and things. So yeah, Diaries only is the thing because it takes you sort of 15 to 20 minutes at least to get into something. They talk a lot about flow in Essentialism, and also there's a lovely other book called Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, which I like a lot, and that talks about flow as well. And it takes it takes a certain amount of time to get into flow, and then you get knocked out of it again very, very quickly. And when you go back to the task you were doing, it takes you another 20 minutes to half an hour to get back into flow again. So
yeah.
That's why multitasking doesn't work either, isn't it? And the flow feeling is really important, especially if you're doing creative stuff.
I think the multitasking is absolutely a disease, and I have the disease, and I didn't used to have it, so it's a disease of now. And I think there are some times when we've got to be absolutely ruthless with ourselves. Not a lot, but just let's say, I don't know, if you've got a task to achieve, it's going to happen today, okay? No multitasking till you've done it.
Well, Greg McEwen took himself off to a hotel for a really not very nice hotel either. He took him off to a utilitarian hotel because he knew he had to get this book done. And he knew that he was just going to get interrupted and he would just get done better if he was, in an okay but not very nice hotel, pounding away on the keyboard.
Yeah.
So, if someone like that has to do it, who lives Essentialism daily, and then they have to make special circumstances to get a task done, I think we have to think, what's the least I can do, but the best thing I can do to get this job done.
What I like about the story about him going to the hotel is it means there's nothing wrong with us.
Yes.
Just because we can't focus and get things done and we're not very productive and we used to be and we're beating ourselves up for it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with us. Even published authors have to have a tactic for achieving focus.
Yeah, whereas Barbara Cartland knocked out 2 books a month. Didn't have to go anywhere to do it.
No, but honestly, she just dictated the most appalling froth to people who would type it up, I think.
Anyway, look, you can see my desktop, so I'm not exactly the world's best advocate for not...
No, I frequently say to people that when I'm on the podcast with you, I have to beg you to shut some of those windows because they make me stressed.
I know. I can't bear it when people have got messy desktops, and when they've got the desktop and there's everything all over it, and it's not even in any kind of folders or anything. It just makes you feel really stressed.
Yeah.
Different.
So I think what we're saying is train yourself. And actually, I think the thing to do it is, I don't know about you, Nicola, but I notice when I start a task, the urge to do something else.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I just increasingly, I try to deny myself going and following that urge. Sticking to what I'm doing is training. I don't know how to describe it another way. Like you've got a personal trainer, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I try to reward myself. I'll go and look at Facebook. I mean, I'm a Facebook ads person. Imagine how difficult it is to go to Facebook all the time without actually getting sucked into it.
Well, quite.
There is an app that sits on Chrome or Firefox. I can't remember which one, but there is an app that will turn off the timeline in the middle.
Yes, there is.
I might have to download that. Good stuff. So what's your word of the week then?
Well, I'm saving mine because it's going to blow your mind. You tell me yours first.
Okay, all right. Intent. The other thing that came out of this Essentialism book is the what is your main intent? And to ask yourself that question. In fact, if you're feeling really, really overwhelmed and there's 5 things that feel equally important and urgent, all you need to do to work out which one you need to do first is to think to yourself, what is your main intent? And if your main intent is, for example, we did a decision making exercise here the other day, and it was, I can't go into the details, but it was about making a decision that was quite a difficult one. And when the person concerned was thinking about their main intent, as one thing, the decision came out one way. And when we changed the main intent to actually the thing that had been the least important at the beginning and suddenly realized it was the most important, it completely changed the decision making process. So you can really sit and think, what's your main intent? Is it to be happier, to make more money? Think about what your main intent is, and then make your decisions or decide your priority, singular, based on that. And the other thing the book talks about a lot is Eli Goldblatt's theory of constraints, which is if you can identify the main constraint against you achieving your goal and work with that, then that's going to have a much bigger impact than if you try to make lots of little incremental improvements. And he told a really nice story about when he was a scoutmaster. No sniggering, please. He took all these boys out on this trek, and he was trying. There was the fast boys, the middle boys, and the slowest boy, and he was trying to bring the slowest boy up to the speed of the fastest boys. And whatever he tried, it just wasn't working. So then he turned it around completely, and he made all the other boys follow the slowest boy. And then that was all right, but they all kept together because his main thing was to keep them all together and safe, basically. And he found that then if he then started improving the slowest boy's speed by, for example, distributing the items in his backpack to the other boys and doing everything he could to help the slowest boy become faster, then the whole team speeded up. And I thought that was a brilliant visual story example of the theory of constraints. If you can identify what your main constraint is and then improve that, it will have a much bigger impact on your moving towards the goal.
I need to tell you 2 things in connection with that. One, the constraints question would help Faye with the productivity.
Yes.
What's my biggest constraint?
Yes. And it's
so what's stopping me from being productive in these 5 hours I have today?
Yes, that is a brilliant question.
The answer is B&Q.
Well, no, the answer is avoiding. There's something she's avoiding by doing.
Yeah. And now I'm going to talk to you about convoys as well. Would you like to hear my story about convoys?
I'd love to hear a convoy story.
Well, as you know, my dad was in the wrong rings. As you know, my dad was in the wrong rings. So there are lots of sort of military people moving convoys. And all my life, when you go in a convoy in the car, you're all going off together in a posse. And recently my friend Nicola went to Italy and they didn't have me with them, so they made a complete mess of this. But my father always used to say the speed of a convoy is that of the slowest vehicle, which is what your constraints man said.
Absolutely, yeah.
So the person in the lead has to keep an eye in their rearview mirror of all the people behind, otherwise you lose people, and the leader of the convoy's job is to get everybody there, so you can't go faster than your slowest vehicle.
Haven't you got a really funny story, which you can't tell now, obviously, for time constraints? So have you going to the seaside where this applied?
Probably. Is that? Yes, that gas. I've written a blog post about it. I shall link to it in the show notes. Yes.
No, honestly, it's the funniest blog post I've ever read. So you must read that. That's the best story.
I will link to it. If only they'd, the leader of that day, had known about my father's rule, it would have been fine. Wouldn't it?
Good stuff. So go on then, tell me yours.
Well, me and my gang in the Small Business Big Magic are on the edge of our seat to find out how you respond to this, because I learned a new word yesterday from Liz, who's one of our listeners. She runs the B&B in Austria, and she listens to us on Friday night when she's making dinner. And when she's not running a B&B, her other interest in life is yoga. And we were talking yesterday, and she gave me a new word. And afterwards, I put in the group, I think I'm going to make this word of the week on the podcast. It'll blow Nicola's mind. It's a yoga word, Nicola. It's drishti, D-R-I-S-H-T-I, and it means focused gaze. And it's a means for developing concentrated intention. Now, your word of the week is intent, and this word speaks exactly to the productivity challenge.
That is so spooky, isn't it?
It's like we rehearsed it, isn't it?
Yeah, but we didn't. We haven't talked all week.
No. So when you're in a yoga pose, you let your eyes fall in a focused gaze on something as a way of developing concentrated intention.
Oh, I can feel myself going all zen-like as we.
It's a good word, drishti, D-R-I-S-H-T-I.
And the zen-like is replacing the overwhelming urge I was feeling a moment ago to break into cowboy speak and pretend like I'm. Who's that chap with the moustache? Burt Reynolds in some film from the 70s, 10-4.
What made you think? Oh, I see. Now, also, Zen was another thing that we came up with yesterday, because actually, when it comes to the multitasking, Zen is the opposite of that. We were talking about the Zen of chores. You know, when you're making supper, the inclination is to load the dishwasher, fry an onion, and lay the table. And actually, it would be better just to do one at once. And that's another way of training yourself. Start the washing up, begin, middle it, end it. Train yourself in the Zen of chores.
I have to really, really fight this. I am trying. I mean, because I've been reading Leo's newsletter about becoming mindful in the chore.
Yeah.
And actually it makes the chores much more bearable to do, I find, if you can...
I agree, totally agree. Yeah, mindfulness, absolutely. I'll tell you whose fault this is. Well, it's the fault of Silicon Valley, isn't it? I was thinking of the capacity they've given us through our computers to do everything at once.
Yes, I see what you mean. But and you could argue that working on your iPad would be much more zen-like, but I can assure you it isn't if it's my iPad.
No, I agree. It's not. You're absolutely right.
I was snapping it with my finger the other day and it just wasn't responding at all. So.
I'm aware we've been very wordy, so let's move on. Project updates, you go first.
Okay, well, I've had a good week on PA, which I've returned to, in spite of saying that I wasn't going to and I was going to focus. Longchamp on Sunday was extremely exciting, Judith. I managed to make I won 200 quid on Golden Horn and Frankie Dettori. I thought Frankie wasn't going to end the season on a low note, was he? So he was going to go for it. And obviously, even offsetting it, I still made about £30 profit on that alone. I've got a question for you on this, though. When you're laying off, when you do that sort of calculatory thing, and it says, if the bookies bet wins, you could make £1.42, and if the exchange bet wins, you could lose £1.42 or something. It's usually, a very similar sum of money.
Yes.
So I don't quite understand how sometimes you make profits. Do the odds move after you make your bet or something?
I don't understand how they do either. There's sort of a bump. There's bunts occasionally, isn't there? And I don't think the odds can move. No, mostly I don't make it on the qualifier. I make it on the freebie that comes from the £1.
I've made a significant amount of profits on normal bets, qualifying bets that you make to get the free bets, and I don't understand how, when you put it into the calculator, it says, minus 46p or plus 46p, and then sometimes you make £2 or £1.80 profit or £5 profit sometimes. I've had a good 3 days and I'm not absolutely sure how I've done it.
Well, I don't think it matters, to be honest. If you're talking about that, if it was 50 quid, I'd try and go and find out.
And then the other project updates are that I've, after a quiet few weeks, I lost a few clients, as you know, and I've tightened my criteria for new clients. And I think I've been putting the energy out into the universe over the last week or two about new clients of the right kind, because just this week I've got 6 new clients. They all want to start next week, interestingly enough, but we've got 6 new campaigns confirmed, and my diary is filling up rapidly for the next few weeks. So it's exciting.
Listen to you. You've gone all woo-woo talking about putting energy out into the universe.
Yeah. I do believe in energy, Judith. I'll have you know, young lady.
Oh, I love it when you call me young lady. I'll be back in the hood again in a minute.
What's your project update?
I've got a new one. I've got a new one, which is very exciting,
I'm exhausted already.
and it's unique. It's a gifting thing where you pay it forward and help other people around the world with $25 donations, which come back to you in a sort of managed matrix. I don't know how to describe it other than that, but it's all about abundance. Do you remember that lovely book, Paying It Forward?
Yes, I do remember it, yes.
Yeah, it's sort of those principles. So it's not an MLM, it's not a business, it's not profits, we're not earning, but abundance is being spread around the world, $25 at a time. And then after that, it gets bigger, it goes up to $100 and $500. And anyway, there's plenty of money in it, and I'll let you know how it goes. It's only me and 6 pals at the moment. We're testing it. And today is a big day for us because it only launched yesterday, I think, and it took until today to get to me, and I'm the first in our gang. It took until today to get to me where I had to make my $25 donations, and I joined twice. So I had to do $25 to somebody in Hong Kong and $25 to somebody else, and then it goes around. Do you know what I mean?
It sounds a bit like the old version, a computer.
Of chain letters.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, it does, and you're not the first person to say that. Exactly, it reminded me of that, and then somebody said it, and then you said it. It is, and obviously there's a great deal of trust in there because it only works for as long as people remain abundant. The minute they slip into scarcity and think about me, it's going to stop working. But we'll see.
I remember when I first came across them was back in 143, St Michael's Road, where the house we converted and all lived as a commune. And I remember sending off my £5 in an envelope with great excitement. So, of course, nothing ever happened. So I'll be extremely interested to see what happens to you.
Well, the good news is that the people under me are people I know, so I'm definitely going to get $50 back from one and $50 back from another. But it's managed, so that it's one for all and all for one, not me. So I actually got it wrong. I thought I had to bring in 2 people under each, so I did, before the man said, no, you've got to bring them in for the benefit of the team. So okay, we'll see what happens.
We will indeed. Right, we can swing into who or what's impressed now.
Shall I go first?
Yes, go on then.
You remember last week I was saying that I'd been excited because I'd had a cash flow game here on the Saturday.
Oh, yes.
The people who have impressed me this week are those who've gone home and made changes to their life and behaviour as a result of what they learned a week ago Saturday.
It must be so exciting to hear that.
I know. Can you imagine? So one of them has already had a vintage boot fair and raised 660 quid.
Nice.
And another person's fallen in love with spreadsheets because suddenly you realise you've got some accounting to do. And what's really good about this is it's changes, as David Bowie would have said. Nobody really likes making changes. We've got to get out of our comfort zone to make changes, and we're all a bit a tad resistant to it. We prefer shelf development to actually having to go home and do something. But I've only seen 2 out of those 5 players so far, so I haven't even got to the other 3. But 2 out of 2 have made changes to their lives as a result of coming here. Isn't that great?
Yeah, it's really good. And again, Essentialism talks about this whole 28-day thing. If you could do, don't tell yourself you're making a change for the rest of your life. Just tell yourself you're trying it out for 28 days. And, you're very keen on challenges and things, aren't you? And apparently that, there is some psychological benefits to doing it like that.
I've been turned off the word challenge. I wish I could find a nicer word. But anyway, tell me who or what's impressed you.
Okay, it's a new bit of software, Judith, just for a change.
Oh, yes.
It's called convertkit.com. People are always asking me for alternatives to Infusionsoft, and MailChimp, I know you love it, but it's if you want to go down if they click this, then they get this series of emails, and if they click that, if this, that is the magic thing. And there is one called Active Campaign, which is supposed to be very, very good. There's a load of, funnels, marketing funnels are the, word du jour online. And there's click funnels and all sorts of things like that. But if you don't want actually a, full-on funnel kind of thing, but you do want a intuitive kind of email program, I came across this one. Some of the software people that I'm in mastermind groups with were talking about it and how nice it is. And it's actually billed as an email system for bloggers. It really looks very, very nice. It's a lot more affordable than easy to use than Active Campaign and Infusionsoft. It's a lot more responsive and intuitive in terms of what people click. You can make different things happen in terms of follow up. So convertkit.com. I like the look of it a lot.
Okay. Are you going to try it or what?
Well, I keep trying to bring myself to move from Infusionsoft, but it's a massive job and I'm bedded in so deeply there. I've just redone my entire marketing funnel, so I can't quite bring myself to move. But I if I started something that I'm always going to no. I'm probably not. No.
You have been talking about this for a few weeks, actually.
I know, but I've just redone my whole marketing funnel. I can't bear the thought of moving.
No, fair enough.
Yeah, but no, it does look good. So check it out, people, and let me know. Let me know if it is. Now I can always tell from looking at things if they're good or not, and this looks great.
Oh, good. And is the boiler serviced?
No, the boiler is now thoroughly serviced, and the young man's sitting in the living room filling in his paperwork.
Okay, very good.
So it's all good, and it worked out fine in the end. Thank you very much, Judith. An absolute pleasure.
No worries.
Always. Speak to you soon.
I'll see you next week, Nicola. Yeah. Bye, dog. Bye.
You've been listening to Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. The podcast is called Own It, Your Business and Your Life. Do come and visit us at ownitthepodcast.com. We'd love to hear your feedback. You can find out more about Judith and visit her on her website at judithmorgan.com, and you can find Nicola at nicolacairncross.com.